Okay.
I think you did it, Sandy.
I did it.
It's live streaming on YouTube.
I don't think the owl is on, though. Is it working?
It's looking at her.
No, that's the laptop.
Oh, is it? Her
Okay.
laptop,
Okay.
Is the owl plugged in?
Oh, it was plugged in.
Looks like it.
The power cord is the power cord is also going on.
Yeah, no, they did all of that at a time.
Is it maybe just not turned on?
Yeah.
No, I can feel that wonder. I said it, so I have to. This is why I'm here.
What has to be manually turned on?
I don't know. No, it's gotta be
That's what Terry was doing the other night.
this power button.
Yeah.
Looks like a power button.
The volume buttons, that's a mute button. That's a mute button, so it has to be a power button, but
Yeah, Harry told me it was all gonna be turned on and I just had to do them.
don't know. Hang out here for as long as necessary.
This is great. I have various technology.
I can't help it all.
Microphone has changed to microphone array. And will now be used. Okay, so that's good. Microphone
If you
array.
check, here, I'll go over there and just.
All right. I can see your great playground.
Okay, maybe I'll plug the owl from the laptop and back in the today.
It's not.
Everything looks like it's plugged.
Yeah.
But all it looked like was plugged in.
I went into Rockland County. What a difference.
Yeah, well, geez, we're used to live in New Hampshire. It's 9 degrees.
So Freiburg is really warm.
Right.
Every other border.
Is this how we're planning the floor space of the library? Get down.
We're gonna experience it.
That's great.
Right.
Learn by doing, right?
I don't know.
Is there an option for the owl camera?
No, there's not.
So
It
you,
doesn't, it's not currently, I don't think it's turned on personally.
It doesn't appear to be, the owl does not appear to be turned on.
What is that lower right? It's simply brown and everything. Is that something?
so like,
Oh, yeah, no, that's not it.
Oh, okay.
then you get a camera, the one that, like.
That's the power source.
It's plugged in here.
But I don't know. He just done something. There it goes.
Oh, and I will.
It's on.
It's beeping, yeah. So it was a power thing, right?
What happened? Do you know what happened?
All I did was switch it from this outlet to that outlet.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can vibe with the owl.
It's still yellow.
It's like a couple of them.
That's the owl.
I thought it was so good.
It turned itself off again.
That's why they call it an owl. like,
Yeah,
is that-
it does its little hoo hoo thing.
This I'm just not sure about.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time we want to spend on it.
Now unplug it from the laptop and that.
Its eyes have turned off again.
No. Well, the first.
We still have the laptop camera as the one selected.
Yeah,
Makes
there's
it-
no other option.
How about just taking that?
So that, here it goes
Take
again.
it off.
It wakes up, you plug it in.
It's gonna move again. Oh, that's what I'm thinking to myself.
It is.
But now it went off.
Not tracking us. So.
What do they say on television? They don't seem to have technical difficulty anymore, do they?
Dedicated people. Doing it, running interference for them.
My L hoots mid-meeting. See what they say about that. I think we might just not solve this right now.
We
But
went,
the owl wasn't working at the public meeting very well, went in and out. And they had a lot of technical difficulties Tuesday night. And we waited like.
And then
20
Carrie came in and tested it the next day and everything was fine.
And it
I say we just meet,
was a waste of 20 minutes in the public meeting.
Yeah.
So maybe we are going to just be heard.
it's recording, right? Yeah,
It is recording and
That's
it's
right.
on.
it says it's live and it's recording, so
If you do the sharing, your screen, or you didn't bring anything,
I did bring the share, yeah. But I can do that. It'll just be on there.
yeah,
It'll be
I
fine.
need to be recorded on the YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just, it's just that we won't have the owl. I mean, if people show up on Zoom, they won't have quite as good audio.
You have to speak extra loud.
Uh-oh.
Probably that microphone in front of Sandy is what you've got.
Yeah, that's the microphone, so. I did actually send everybody an email just before this meeting. Catherine probably got it.
I just looked at,
you sent an email to us?
Yeah,
Before the meeting.
Okay,
I don't have my phone.
do we,
immediately before the meeting. So those of you who got the email, I only have two hard copies of this document.
I love
you want me to hand some things out?
I just have 2 copies, so people are gonna have to share.
Is there any way you can share it from your computer? or-
I will share it from the computer as
Okay,
well.
great.
because I want to go the minutes and I'll share with Catherine here.
So maybe I'll give one
Yeah.
to
Okay,
and this.
We could copy set on the copier.
Sure, we
Yeah.
Then we started on another technical thing. If somebody wants to do that in the background, that'd be fine. I'm gonna plug my computer in.
you want me to start the beginning, like the call to order and then?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. It's 6:10. June 1st. Oops, very nice. Any adjustments to the agenda that people want
We
to?
don't have it.
Any public comment for items not on the agenda?
No.
No. Okay, you have the minutes from May 16th in front of you, and if you would take a few minutes and just peruse them for any, some of you responded when I sent them out, so.
So we can't tell if anyone's on Zoom.
It's recording.
I just, for minutes purposes, that's. all.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You would hear the ignition,
But we wouldn't see their name or anything, and
it will pop up and.
It will show up, yeah. Doesn't
Okay.
have anything to do with the owl.
Oh, if people want to come in, you mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I move that we accept the minutes of May 16th.
Okay, all
That's-
in favor?
Adding it now.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. Aye, okay, great. Thank you very much, and I'm gonna hand this meeting shortly over to Kate, who's been working all day on this. We're gonna be going over, so what I included in what I gave you was last meeting's floor plans. And Gabe has been refining and revising and working on a spec sheet for us, so, is that in the new email? or-
It is.
Okay.
The new email has the whole document.
Okay.
So. Now, but everything is. There we go. So, what I've shared here. Is draft of. Basically the full packet that I would propose that we give following the outline that I sent previously. Obviously, if it's, I didn't have the ability to print it in color. And it just contains, per the outline, the floor plans, the list of rooms, the thesis statement. Some notes on the overall design approach and some notes on energy efficiency, building performance, and then a brief note on project cost at the end.
Mhm.
So I'm happy to just go through this. Or if folks have the ability to read it. It might be faster if we do that on our own.
So you want to spend a few minutes? Thank you, Gabe, for doing this, a lot of work, I know.
Very nice.
Penny, sorry, I'll put it up on the screen. So. Is there any chance you can read that from there, Penny? Oh, sorry. Well, maybe if somebody finishes a page, they can hand it to Penny so she can read it.
Maybe we should read it aloud.
I also realized that there is a project mission statement included in the town report. And that this one doesn't quite match it, so I think we will.
That
we
mission
could-
statement was based on our thesis.
Yeah, so is this one.
Yeah.
And I think that. I just overlooked that fact, so if we would rather just match that one, I'll just copy it in.
It's okay, because, people understand that whatever comes out in the annual report has to be produced.
Earlier,
So,
But we did that as a result of
yeah.
working
Yeah,
on a thesis statement.
Exactly, and this
a
is,
couple of
this
months ago.
I basically copied the language from everybody's thesis statement.
It's totally consistent with what's in the annual report, so.
Okay, so I will read it out loud for Penny's benefit. It says, the South Thomaston Library and Community Center will be an inviting and welcoming place for townspeople of all ages to meet, socialize, collaborate, and learn. It will provide spaces large enough to host our annual town meeting and small enough for two friends to catch up over coffee. The spaces will be flexible, carefully sized, and full of natural light, paying close attention to orientation, use, and usability for volunteer staff. The building will honor the local context and the tradition of learning and gathering embodied by the Guilford Butler School and the Guilford Butler Center. No fossil fuels will be consumed during building operations, and the building will generate as much energy as it consumes, minimizing operating costs to the town. South Thomaston Library and Community Center will be the new center of town, a point of pride, a gathering place, and a durable investment in the future of the town and its citizens. I think that's
There is a typo, minimizing.
minimizing. Oh yeah, minimizing, yeah, okay. Let me put it, I'll highlight that before I forget it. Minimizing, yeah. Minizing, yeah. So that was just, I just came up with that again, based on everybody's statement.
I'm happy with it.
All right. Great, and obviously, if you have any thoughts later, this is in your email, you can
The
send. me
thing,
any
what I
updates.
would say about the vision statement is when we start, which I've been starting to make an outline for a case study, which you need to do for fundraising, have a case study, that the vision statement should be as concise as possible. So, I think this is a wonderful vision statement.
Yeah.
And we might want to, whoever's going to be working on the final case statement, as I am, might need to pare it down a little bit. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
That makes sense, yeah, I think this is. I agree,
It's-
there's a
but
shorter
this
version
is-
out there.
Yeah, but this is good for community understanding, I think.
So then we have a small amount of information about the design process that we have undertaken. A little bit of a description of the process. So basically broken into 3 phases: generating the list of rooms based on the survey and the feedback from the community. That's programming number 1. Organization, I changed the order, sorry, but I thought it was more clear this way. We actually did the exercises in the opposite order, but I'm listing them this way. So then talking about arrangement of desired rooms, that's the floor planning exercise. 2 stories and 1 story version, and then 3, the look and feel, and just listing the priorities that we had established for those based on everybody's written statements and images. And this again is my summary, so if you want to add anything to these lists, please just let me know. And those are, for the exterior, I wrote fit into neighborhood context, clean, airy, and inviting, a welcoming entrance visible from the road, and the thinking about solar orientation. And then interior, I wrote prioritize natural light, prioritize flexible use, prioritize durable materials, a whimsical and inviting children's area and space that welcomes everyone, an inclusive space. So I think, feel free to add anything that you guys think I missed, because there's got to be something.
Good, but I have a question for you. Wait, if somebody questions you on the word inclusive, not that they don't understand that word, but what does that mean in relation to space that welcomes everyone inclusive?
Yeah, I guess that's
ADA
like
compliance.
it means ADA compliant. It means, just generally a feeling of openness, like clear wayfinding, I would say. Like people walk in, they understand where to go. They walk in, they can see someone at a desk, perhaps, like it doesn't feel like they're walking into a building that's closed or confusing.
So I'm suggesting that you change inclusive to read ADA. I just lost the word I wanted to use earlier. Thank you. Compliant, and welcoming to all.
Yeah, or actually to,
It might be better to
all-
say what Gabe had, it's space that welcomes everyone, and then underneath bullet point, ADA. Inviting,
Yeah.
open, different things,
Yeah.
all your little bullet points.
Yeah.
because
all
The
ages, all
biggest thing
abilities, I
that
think.
came from all of our statements was welcoming, so I don't want ADA to be the first thing.
Yeah,
Right.
We have to be that way, but it's welcoming.
yeah, that sounds good. I like the
Inclusive-
idea of some
Inclusive to
sub-bullets.
all ages and all,
Yeah.
and all abilities, something that,
It sounds a little more, it sounds more personal, and it sounds, that we're caring and we're considering all of that stuff rather than inclusive.
Definitely. No, I
Yeah.
think that's a great point.
yeah,
I
I think
can
that
update
that could
that.
be, that could be said differently. I agree with you, Candace.
So then we have the updated list of rooms, which I will rotate and zoom in on. This has been updated basically just to agree in a couple of ways. Rotate, sorry, 90 degrees, which way? I gotta go clockwise. Clockwise. And then I'll zoom in. So I'll just highlight a couple quick small changes. I apologize if that's cut off at the bottom that I can fix. So I decreased the size of the reception area slightly. In keeping with some comments that we got last time. There have been no major changes in the library area. But I included more storage in the support basement. I added the notion of a basement. I included more storage. And I also included a stair to get down to the basement. I dialed that in, and then previously I had a 20% sort of fudge factor on that for things like corridors and wall thicknesses. I think because of the level of specificity that these layouts have gotten to, that 20% was too much. So I decreased that to 5%.
Where is that?
That's the second to last
Oh.
line. So the total square footage of the building has decreased very slightly from about 6,600 square feet to 6,300 square feet. I just did that because I wanted to make sure. Things were reasonable. I think there's probably some more savings that could be found. But as you'll see when you get to the budget portion, those savings might be required. Don't want to be dire here, but anyway, so then moving on to the floor plans quickly, I'll describe what I updated. So now we have a basement indicated below the central group of spaces and a stair at the back. The reception has shrunk a little bit. Orientation of the bathroom has changed to accommodate a corridor leading to the stair. And you could imagine pretty easily that, this is actually something you could pass all the way through because that stair is going to want to direct doors to the outside.
Mhm,
So you could have, a glass
mhm.
door and a glass door, so you can actually use that not only just to access this sort of utility stair to get to the basement, but as a direct pathway to the outside. I have included a little bit of sort of multi-purpose furniture storage adjacent to the multi-purpose meeting room and the main meeting room. I'm thinking of that primarily for things like chairs, stacking chairs on dollies, things like that. And then in the library area, I have I renamed this room from teen room to game room / makerspace. And I think there's a question. I'm still not completely sure exactly what that room needs to be for and what the best use of that amount of space is, but I slid it down. So it now is adjacent to the office, so it's a little bit more supervised. And the sacrifice that was made there was that the book sale has to be moved into the reception area. It could be put back, but I was just thinking in the interest of efficiency, that it's probable that a book sale shelf can be made to fit in the reception.
And if it's done correctly, it looks actually kind of like a store kind of thing.
Yeah, it could do.
Works into that.
And it's also possible that reception area, might be possible to keep the reception area and the bathrooms, for example, open more of the time. They don't necessarily need to be staffed in the same way that Penny has some book sale stuff outside in the summer, like
That's giveaway.
that's giveaway. Okay,
Yeah.
it's not sale, that's free stuff.
No, but the book sale is, room, it is nice to be able to shut the door
Mhm.
on. Rather than have them out, open.
And actually, I think
And the office is not where. Not going to be near, the office is for. Dealing with the books that come in and out and shipping packing supplies, but the clerk desk is where. People will be when the building is open.
Yep.
And actually, when I was thinking about the school that you visited, so the name of it, I don't.
The Falmouth.
Falmouth, yeah. They had a nice little room, so it felt like more like a store, the book sale.
For the book sale.
Yeah.
Well, what they had done, it's something I had never heard before. I don't know the pros and cons of it, but instead of a once a year book sale, it was an all year long. People could go into the space and pick out their books and take it to the circulation desk and pay. And the volunteer staff was handling that, and they made $10,000 a year on their.
And that's what St. George Library is. Downstairs, they have a book sale.
Yes.
So
But the one in Falmouth.
It was a
all the way-
process.
it was way at the
It
end.
was
Yeah, no, it
awful.
wasn't a
It was
pleasant.
off the kitchen. You
Yeah.
have to get into the kitchen.
It was
Yeah.
down that.
So that's the position, and that we can discuss later, but I think what we're really looking at right now initially is we want a separate room for that.
Yeah, I think that's fine. It's easy enough to put back. And I think it was probably a little bit big before, so we can put it back in a nice appropriate size. That's fine. Yeah, thank you for clarifying the difference between those two shelves of books. Um, and then I just indicated that, we're thinking about the kitchen on the reception end of the main meeting space to sort of activate that space a little more and create more of a connection to the library.
Okay,
Yes, go ahead.
we had talked, and it's on the list from November about having a patio or a deck going out. And
It could be anywhere.
okay, but it was on the side where, I'm not sure of the orientation here, but looking out into the playground. If we have
That's
the
this
deck,
side, yeah.
if we have a deck there, the kitchen really should be closer there, so if you're having an event and people are doing things inside and out, you want it close by, and so it's just a note that we need to look at that. Because it was something we talked about, and I'm looking back at our notes from October and November.
See, instead of having the kitchen, so at the bottom, that's a stripped little area. I would put it flipped, to the other wall and to the upper section.
That's a wall you want open.
Well,
Put the kitchen in the corner and then have it open, and then you got your deck, that those need to be in close proximity.
I guess, yeah.
In the
that's
corner on
It
the
could
left
go
there,
Yes.
there, so-
because in the back, that's gonna,
Yeah.
if there's a,
Yeah, that would be, and it's, well, you can't block the showers and stuff, but I guess it can be open from the corridor.
Yeah, so the showers are accessed like that, bathroom most likely.
That's the right wall because that's where all the utilities.
That's where the plumbing is gonna be anyway, so I think that's a smart move.
Yeah, so the corridor actually could be an L so that it's easily, instead of going all the way to the reception
Yeah.
area.
It's truly not that far.
Okay. Yeah.
That whole room
It's
is,
their
that
side.
whole room is 50 feet long, so you can imagine that you're walking like,
Yeah,
I mean, from here to the bathroom.
yeah, all
yeah,
right, cool.
yeah,
But yeah, no, if you want, it's also. There will be plenty of options for how to access that based on the layout as well, if you wanted access directly. And plus the kitchen probably doesn't need to be quite that long, but it can easily move to that wall.
Yeah.
And that makes that's gonna be easier too for access that way.
Yeah,
So the wall, as I'm looking at the bath shower stair reception, that dotted line, that's a solid wall, or is that a?
That's a solid wall.
That's a solid wall. So why couldn't you move the kitchen with the utilities over there? Why couldn't you move the kitchen
You can.
That's
to
what
the
he-
backside?
yeah,
That's what he was already
Yeah.
talking about.
So the kitchen is going to go, we're gonna show some kitchen in that area.
Right,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I was understanding that it was.
That's better,
Yep.
yep.
Someplace else, thank you.
Totally.
Yay. And that gives you one certain space for the rest of the facility. Yeah.
Right. So just quickly, and again. Keep looking at it and send me some emails. But just quickly, I did a think on the
On
on the
the
two-story version.
two-story options.
So again, for some reason, we have the upper story on the lower drawing, which I just will rotate that at some point, but the idea was, I think Sandy sent an email saying it would be nice to sort of mix the programs a little bit. So there's some, there's some more community focused program with the library and some, so it blends a little bit on the floors. And also, I think nicer to have a more central entrance. So
Yeah.
here we have a sort of central entrance stair cluster. So this is imagining this sort of portion is a stair, but the stair itself is actually open to the reception. So it's got some light coming down and it's a little bit nicer. And that
and that entrance is on the north side.
entrance on the north side. And so this children's room and the reading room and the stacks, so that's all, could be all open to the south light.
So you need, the north being the higher elevation, going towards south being a lower elevation,
Yeah, so exactly. So you enter on the upper
Upper.
floor.
which is the opposite of the layout of the land.
No, it's the same. You enter, you mean? Hold on, which is,
It's west.
it's north, so it faces northwest now, right? Slightly northwest.
Yes.
It's about 90 degrees. It's close to 90 degrees. And it could be, and it could turn whichever way you wanted it to turn. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I think
But you,
I would say we don't necessarily need to think about it in terms of pure cardinal directions, but roughly similar to the orientation of the land now. We should look at it. I think that's a good point. But either way, the idea is you enter there and it's roughly in the center. You go down, there's bathrooms and showers off the reception. And you can sort of pass straight through. The circulation desk is here. That's also basically functioning as a reception desk because there's a lot of times when there's only going to be one person in the building. You can pass straight through into the stacks, the children's room's right there. And then the meeting room is also accessible directly from that reception. So that multi-purpose meeting room, which is probably going to be one of the more commonly used spaces, is easily accessible right from that reception. And then going downstairs. So this is what I was working on like 10 minutes before the meeting, so need the bathroom. But downstairs, then you come through, and I was imagining this sort of interesting space where there's like a relatively large space that is open, like directly open to the outside, that has a sort of kitchen maker space, like informal aspect, but that also serves as a sort of entry into the main meeting space. So there's and this is a question, like, is that real? But so you'd be able to pass basically straight through there. The outside, you have windows on the lower level. And you're in this sort of more informal, but social sort of workshop-y space.
Kind of the space in Rockford Library downstairs,
I don't think I know that space, but
what space? And
the Rockford Library, the lower floor. They have, kitchen galley kind of thing,
Yeah.
and then it's open, there is a TV on one wall, they have chairs where people, it's like a cafe style things, but, the little tables could be moved to have a presentation or something.
yeah, so something more like that, yeah.
Mm.
And then adjacent to that, the main meeting space. So people are coming into town meeting. This is where they get like a snack, entrance table. They
I'm
set up,
liking this.
and then they come through into the main meeting space. And I think this could even potentially, so missing here is obviously the movable wall, which is right there. But you could even imagine that could additionally be a movable wall right there, so that you could actually open the whole thing up if you wanted to. So that's,
Mhm.
and then there's a question of where the bathroom is, and there's a storage area adjacent to the stair, sort of taking up as much of that back side as possible. So this is again closer to the light. You can imagine that the building comes out from underground, maybe there.
Do you need to have another bathroom if you're doing two?
You need there should be a bathroom on both floors. And there should be
Yeah.
an elevator. So there's two sort of pickups there that need to be fixed, but I think that's not insurmountable.
So what's the situation with the elevator? Yeah, that's one really.
I think you can start to imagine that the bathroom. Maybe there's a situation where this meeting space actually gets a little longer and a little thinner. And the bathroom, there's like a elevator bathroom storage thing happening on this side. And then this pushes it to the,
Inside it's above, underneath the,
yeah, so it's underneath the other bathrooms and.
That makes sense. So I was thinking, you could go closer to the kitchen area because of the plumbing and such.
Yeah, or it could be that this is
Yeah.
more useful back here as storage and the bathroom right next to the stair over here. They don't strictly have to be stacked, but
No, that's not, it would be nice to have a bath and shower, same location on each floor, it would make it easy for everybody. Not like that.
so that's just, it was a way of trying to make that lower floor feel as open as possible.
If you put the stairs, you know, at the reception, be open the widest area and the stair, you know, on the other side. So that on the lower level, they come in one of the orange section. And then, you know, it opens more space.
I'm not totally sure. You mean like the stair, sorry.
So if you walk into the reception and at the back of that reception area is where the stair went down, sort of
Like
open
that?
to the multipurpose room meeting area.
Or you mean over here?
No,
Sort of there.
Maybe
you know,
between-
right now you have the cross section, which
Oh, you
is
mean
the
right
stairs
here?
going down.
You mean there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where you,
Or not even there, but like, just you have the same surface area in your reception stairs, but you rotate that hatched area and puts it to the, you know, edging the blue wall in the back.
yeah, that's what you see.
Yes,
Yeah.
like right there.
Yeah.
And then it's over the orange.
That could be really nice with the circulation dust right there.
Because this way it doesn't shove up the, you know, big area so much with the kitchen and things.
Moira,
Sorry, go
Thank
ahead.
you. I guess I would like to ask people if they're interested in a 2-floor building. Or just have a 1-floor building. I personally don't like the 2-floor building and I really don't want to spend time doing it. Because I feel that it's separating the entities, because there are things in the library and things in the community center that go together, and by having 2 different floors,
It's gonna take
It-
more
it-
volunteers.
it's separation, and plus having to have an elevator, 2 bathrooms on 2 floors. I'd rather get it into a building on 1 floor that can do so many more things. So my question is just to ask people what their preference. So we're not, you know, doing something that we don't need to.
yeah. That was my opinion last meeting, that the first floor, 1 floor felt more open, it felt more cohesive to the 2 functions. And that for those functions to go back and forth. You know, knowing that we have this elevation in the building, I would, and I sent Gabe an email saying, well, maybe you don't need to separate the 2 functions, like one on the lower level, one on the upper level. Maybe we can think about quiet spaces and louder spaces, or, you know, other ways of separating things out. I'm liking this version of the 2nd floor better than 2 floors better than the last one, but I'm not sure. I mean, I guess partly,
I guess I'm go around the room. Just go around the room and have us consensus.
But it's not just us, we have to think about what the town would work.
But we can at least say that the committee is the consensus amongst the committee that. one.
yeah. What do you think, Jan? Are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm torn with the cost, which we haven't talked about yet, and I think there's savings in a 2-story. But at the same time, I would prefer a 1-story too. I think.
I mean, I think
The openness and the
Yeah.
flow and all those things are better.
I agree. I mean, one thing that we can think about this effort so far is just that I think we've gotten far enough to recognize that there's probably a 2-story layout that will work. And that we can be creative and we can do a good job of doing that if it becomes necessary. But at this point, I mean, we're not at the point where, you know, we have been told anything about what we should do. We're just saying, like, here's basically the first time we're reporting out what we think is the right thing to do. And if it's fine with me if that's just one version. And I also prefer the 1-story version for all the same reasons as everybody else, but I was happy to spend a little bit more time on the 2-story version, because I do also feel like this, even though this is obviously like
I think
not
presenting
all
the
of
vote
it,
is a good idea, even though, you know, even if we feel.
Well, we haven't finished with the rest of it. Put their consumptions on.
So Candace, your preference on the 2 floors? 2 floors, 1 floor.
so I think that's one
I'm
question,
open right now.
but, and then the other question is, do you think it makes sense to present them both? I think that's,
I think so. I mean, I think for the townspeople, just as we said, I mean, their views. I think it's important to show them kind of what hypothetically what it would look like.
Right.
Yeah, I think,
And also what our,
Visual.
what our thinking has been about this,
so maybe it's just a matter of, we agree, we should say, in the text. That, I mean, we could vote on it if we wanted to, but I think it's clear that the majority of the committee members prefer the one-story building, but that. We wanted to present both options in order to get as much feedback as possible.
And I think that's the way to do it, because the concept that you have of the entry kitchen maker that you have on that, really, I like the idea, and we should incorporate it on this one-story building. Because it makes sense, because you can do so many different things in that one room. Which you-
incorporate what into the one story?
The entry kitchen maker space, that upper right-hand corner view.
Mhm.
For people who come in, that's a casual way, if that was the back entry coming in. And because you do want, when they come in the front way,
Mhm.
to have the desk and everything, but that's a unique and interesting way of doing it. And it's casual, and it would lead right onto a patio or a deck,
Right,
Yeah, so
and
it
it
could be
makes a lot of
something
sense.
that
Yeah.
happens back here.
Football on that floor plan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it was a nice concept, that's what I'm saying.
So that's the workflow that you're speaking about at this particular moment. Correct? And what we're seeing right there.
No, what I was saying to Gabe was that on the two-story plan, he has this entry kitchen maker, 800 square foot concept. I said that I like that idea, and that would be good to incorporate on the one story. Where you can use the space of that casualness of kitchen, the maker space of leading out to the deck or patio.
Mhm.
And then that gives different space on the other side, because you've taken away, like, I know there's two computers that Penny said last time, but we talked about a computer room or a game room or a tech room or a sewing room, so there's some space there.
yeah. Yeah, we can definitely try that.
So you'd have a door going out of that main meeting room space.
Well, or onto the patio or somewhere. The deck patio coming in where people could come in that way, and then there's a kitchen, a maker space. And it leads into the meeting area, which is the concept that he had on the two-story, which is a nice concept.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Penny.
Could I offer some input on the two-story
Sure.
plan before you abandon? To me, the meeting space for the once a year meeting and multi-meeting spaces are the spaces that need the privacy. And those would also be the areas where exercise would happen. And I would see those on the lower level where they don't really need attendance or supervision. And for renting out the kitchen and the potluck suckers, that kind of thing. I would see those being on the lower level. And then the maker space, I'd rather see close to the children's room. The maker space is not a place that is going to be able to put it all away and open up into public use for function, it's going to have 3D printers, there's quite a lot of equipment and tables and chairs that and storage. It just seems a shame to dismiss
You could
the
revert
level.
the two rooms, actually, you have the children's room near the entrance so that it can be obvious that, there are kids
Or
inside.
just flip those two.
Yes.
and- So, Penny, can I ask,
Yeah,
Penny,
sorry.
I have a question for you. If you were scheduling a slide presentation or a film or a speaker, what space? What kind?
Multi-purpose meeting room.
The
Yeah.
multi-purpose meeting room, yeah,
And it would be nice to have it with the kitchen, because I agree with that.
and exercise would be part of that big meeting space. Anybody having like a potluck dinner, that would be in the big meeting space, or if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to have a party or whatever, that would be in the meeting space.
Mhm.
So that would need to be next to a kitchen. Yeah, okay.
And what was the square footage of this? Version?
It's roughly the same. It needs to be,
I mean,
You turn
even
it
if the
into-
one level. Building, you still would have to have some storage in the basement, right?
there would be a small basement, so the small basement is located under here. Underneath this core, and the, that's also, you know, where the mechanical equipment would go, and that square footage is is included in this 6,300.
And how much of that is stored?
Depending on the size of the actual mechanical equipment, I mean, it's sort of the whole thing, between 600 and 700 square feet of storage in that basement. Plus or minus.
And there would not be an outdoor. Entrance to that.
There could be, but there also could be, I mean, there's a direct outdoor entrance to the stair, so. I think. You know, that would be. Depending on how you chose to do it. With the landscaping.
Well, how are you gonna bring all the mechanical downstairs?
Well, they can do that.
What?
They can do that.
I'm more concerned on how we're gonna get the big signs and books and.
You wanna make it easy to bring stuff into storage.
If you need to remove a big piece of equipment or something, so there has to be an easy access from. You know, to the basement.
Well, depending on the way the roof is designed, there could the equipment be under. And then there'd be like just a hot water heater or something down there. They can get that out. Yeah, no, it does depend. If it needs to have direct access, then obviously like the deck patio concept has to change. And then, you know, you would say pretty
Or
significant.
it could be, you know, positioned around. You know, an L shape from, you know, the eastern side to the south.
Yeah, or maybe the basement doesn't go under the center, it goes under one of the two wings.
Yeah,
And then it could be accessed from one side.
yeah.
I think that's, you know, that's just. That's kind of a question that we don't actually need to answer right now. Because we know the options are there. And we can shift that, but I think the idea of a building. Mostly on one floor with a small amount of basement storage for mechanical equipment and things like that is. A viable one. It's nice where it's located because you sort of already have very likely, you know, a line of. Structural element of some kind running along that line, so you have a foundation wall there anyway, so it's, you know, there are reasons to do it there.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a clean location, also centrally located, so you got duct work or something, it's easy to get to two places. But. Again, it's all a balancing act, so if we need direct access from the outside, then. If that becomes the most important aspect of it, then we obviously just change the way it's working.
Right, so if you were looking at this as a presentation for the town, then you would not have the staircase there, is that correct?
If the basement went away,
Right, but
then you
like
would,
the one floor presentation would be very similar to this, right?
this is the one floor.
This is the one floor.
This is all
Well,
of
with
the
the
main
staircase
to the basement.
to the
The basement is only for storage.
Only
so-
like, okay.
So this
we're
is
not
all
opening
of
the
all of the things where people go is all on one floor.
public.
But there's storage and some additional functionality in the basement.
So where is the road?
Where is what?
The road.
So yeah, we do have to show that. It's down.
Yeah, it's north, which is down on your map. The buildings, oh, you're right, the building sits kind of northwest. If you stand with your back, if you're on the front steps, you stand with your back to the building. North is about like that. So it's kind of facing
Yeah, so,
in kind of northwest,
Yeah, so I
the way
could,
it sits now, Guilford Butler.
and again, that might not be such a bad orientation for this
I know.
building.
Right.
Particularly if you imagine that these, depending on how you imagine the three-dimensionality of the thing, but like, if this becomes like gable roof. It might want to twist a little bit, so you get sun, you know, two gable roofs, maybe sun coming into those gables. For solar, there's a. I mean, I think that it's just not completely resolved. But we can, it's a good point, Catherine, to put a little arrow or a little indicator on this map of where the road is.
Yeah, I think it will help, because same thing, I'm thinking like the roof lines, you know, if you want a major southern orientations, you may have to go like this. Seesaw kind of, you know, sawtooth kind of roof. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you probably don't have to.
Mhm.
This. I think that it's also true that the losses of efficiency from not having perfect southern orientation on your solar panels is not that great. So I think it's just, again, it's another of those trade-offs. Once they figure it out, like,
Yeah, we have more northern climate, so it's like, you know, it's.
you can update that. But that is good. That will help orient people.
And especially if you do it with the two floor things, because I really. The way right now, you know. The back of the building where the garage door is, that's where it's the lower side.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then you have this huge, you know, it's going up quite a bit, so I don't see how you could put the open area, open it down there. It would be the opposite direction in my mind. You know, just because ideally the two floor, you want to keep the same orientation for both.
Yeah. I mean, it's also. Hold on, I'm gonna go over here and look at this map. So we're sort of right here. Right? So the building right now faces us that way.
Right.
So we have southeast orientation on that back of the building currently. But if you imagine even just turning on a little bit. Then those lower level room.
I'm going to look into the appeal.
No, they're gonna look south across the current playground.
But the current playground, I mean, the way I see it, you have a flat area where the playground is, and there is a green area. And then it goes down this way.
Yeah, no, it would do that, yeah, but there's no, like,
So you would have to do quite a bit of terrassement, you know, groundwork to.
Do some filling in there, is that what you're
I
thinking?
don't know.
it's the exact same way, it's the exact same way that the current building is working in terms of where those windows would be, and I think you would have to take out some of that. Yeah, I mean, there would be some excavation.
Excavation of the hill.
But you wouldn't, I mean, the flip of it is that you wouldn't have to excavate the actual like higher part. So I think that there's always gonna be something. I think that's a good point, though. I mean, that does cut into, for example, the cost savings. If you have to manipulate the shape of the earth too much.
Yeah.
Are you looking at doing the solar panels on the roof or on ground?
I think rooftop is better. Just because it saves space.
I wouldn't, it saves space, I don't say it's better.
It's harder to maintain, you're saying.
Well, when it snows, you can take care of a ground mount and take care of and get your sun right away. And also for
I mean, there's
repairs,
also a question of, if there's already going to be some solar installed somewhere related to this property,
Right.
like if it becomes a ground mounted array, then we would just use that array.
we plug into that.
Yeah.
And then there would be no need to worry about the orientation of the roof. But I think there's,
I think from a conservation point of view, having ground mount when you could have open green area for kids to play or whatever, I mean, that the roof is better.
Yeah.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, because I know there's another committee that's looking at a solar array
Yeah.
with a town, which would support this building and would support that building.
Yeah,
So it doesn't necessarily have to be either on the roof or.
yeah. The thing I would say,
Might
actually,
be offsite.
the way I would guess to think of it is like, you want a roof that's decent for solar,
I agree.
because you never know if you want to add more.
Mhm.
And I think that's. And I think it's a goal, I put it in here as a goal that, the building would be net zero or better. And in order to meet that, you know, whatever solar array is pre-existing, that does not be enough, and then you want to add some solar on the roof, and if you can do it,
Yeah,
it's
why
better
not?
if you can do it. So it should at least be solar ready. So I think the orientation is still.
Candace.
And so, thank you. And so I would suggest too, and it sounds like that this, Jan's. Point as well, is that we talk to people who are in the solar business, we could get information from 3 or 4. I know we're looking at Rock House as well, and so there are a number of people out there. That would also probably drive some of the orientation.
Yeah, there's also a website, you can just check the actual solar generating capacity of any generic area from website.
I have solar, I have geothermal at my house, so.
Yeah.
I know quite a bit of this.
Yeah, no, I think in other words, like, it's not hard to test orientations and get information.
That was just the question, because you could have, you probably won't have enough on the roof, maybe. But you can ground mounts, you can park cars under a ground mount.
Yeah. So
And you
if
can
it's
do
not
different-
area, I agree with that.
You could do different things, because I don't know if this will be enough space,
Yeah.
because we don't know the amount of watts that are gonna be needed.
Yeah.
Right.
The roof over parking actually was quite nice, because you know, there's a cars.
But that's not a decision we need to make.
No, but it was,
Yeah,
if I-
It's like something.
but it,
But no, I think it's a good
Catherine's
decision.
point with the direction of the roof
Right.
is important.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that all makes sense. Okay, we have more to cover, so I'm gonna move on.
Yep.
So now I'm gonna zoom out. Hold on, zooming out. I've just collected some of the interior photos that the committee members have shared. What I tried to do, I have a couple questions about this. One, so what I did was I tried to capture most of the different areas, like a library stacks, children's room, general hangout space, a reading area, and a big meeting room. You know, these are all images that the committee has seen. At least the members of the committee who aren't recent members. So sorry about springing all that on you, Jan. But
I think I saw it when I was a selectman, actually, when the ladies that went out and looked at a lot of these places.
yeah, great.
Came back and briefed us.
Perfect. So I think I use this number of images because when I did more, they got really small. And I think that
And too few makes it seem like
Too
this
few
is
makes
what
it
we
seems like it,
absolutely
yeah.
want, rather than these are the
Yeah.
possibilities.
Yeah.
so I think 6 was where I landed, but I guess I wanted to ask, do people think it's too few?
I don't think
No.
so.
It's
So-
a nice variety.
And it also-
A sense of the possible.
And I was trying to make it seem like the decision hadn't been made, so I was trying to make it so they don't look all the same, but there's just like a couple different things that are going on. So then on the exteriors, I did a little differently. I used two of the most, every committee member individually found an image of this building in the middle. So that's one, so I included 2 images of that, and then the Falmouth Library that we visited. Everybody responded pretty positively to. I included 2 images of that. And then I included just at the bottom some, like an outdoor patio area, which I didn't see before. And then just like some idea about materials. I don't know, I think I'm a little, apologies to Catherine, I'm a little bit torn about including that crazy wavy thing.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of liked it because it's like, it doesn't have to be like
Well,
this
it's
modern
like-
serious thing. It could be something.
Creativity.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I put it in, because to say like, it doesn't have to be like totally straight line serious, like there could be something fun about it if people want it. So that was, people feeling good about this collection of images so far?
Yes.
I think it's very good.
All right. That's great. And then, I include a little bit of information about energy efficiency, building performance. I reiterated, and I'll read this, my little statement, and we can talk about the specs I wrote. So the Library and Community Center Facility Committee agreed that any new building should meet high standards for energy efficiency and building performance, use no fossil fuels, and generate renewable energy on site. In order to achieve this, the design of the new South Thomaston Library and Community Center will be rooted in efficient and ecological building principles. And then I just go on to list a few. Some of them are quite specific, but I think it's a little bit important to get that specific with some of them because they matter a lot for building energy performance. So the first one is that we're talking about, a wood frame building using natural carbon storing regionally sourced structural and finished materials. The reason I say that is because obviously, if you build a building out of steel and concrete, there's an awful lot of energy used and carbon emitted in the atmosphere by producing those materials and shipping them from far away. So if you can use more local materials, more what we call biogenic materials, you have the actual, almost the opposite effect where some of those materials, they pull carbon out of the air and you stash them in the building for a while so they don't get released. Putting your finger on the scale of the carbon cycle a little bit. So then proper orientation for natural light and rooftop solar panels, we talked about that. Climate specific glass windows, prioritizing insulation and heat gain in the winter with shading for the summer. So I think rather than specifying a specific window, I want to just, to me, that's the important feature of a window. You're balancing you want high heat gain in Maine most of the time, and then you want.
In hot areas, I know, you have the windows and, how about, the breeze over the
Yeah.
window, so they can get a much more shade and things.
The trick, yeah, I think it depends a little bit on the number of people you expect to be in the building. It's going to be we presume we're going to have a heat pump system that's going to be able to do heat and cooling. So I think
Yeah, that's nice.
Maine we have something like 250 days a year where we heat in Maine as opposed to cool. So it's a very heating dominant climate. So I know it's changing a little bit. And so we have to be prepared for that. That's a good point. But I think generally heat gain is good in windows in Maine specifically. And then so super insulated building envelope using natural regionally sourced insulation materials. That's like a cellulose wood fiber insulation, trying to avoid petroleum foams. General R values for different building assemblies. Those are pretty aggressive, but that's where
We'll see the repair.
you see the return. And also, that's
And you're looking at a heat pump water heater.
likely. If we have a basement where it fits.
It's only
Let's do
6
it all.
feet tall. Got one.
I know, I think it's for a commercial building, a bigger one. But
Probably, well, it's 80 gallons.
80 gallons, pretty big.
It's big.
But you can, also you use super low flow
Mhm.
fixtures, so you can get away with it. And there are commercial ones, but yes, probably.
Because it dehumidifies also your basement, so.
Yeah,
if
no,
you're
it's a
using-
win-win.
Yeah, if you're in storage, you won't have any problems with that.
So I think it's sort of down below, but anyway, so higher values. 100% pressure ventilation with efficient heat recovery. That's a health and an energy efficiency thing. You want to make sure you're cycling fresh air into the building at an appropriate rate, but you also want to make sure that you're not just throwing your heat out. So you have a heat recovery ventilation system. That airtight building envelope, that 0.6 air changes per hour at 50 pascals. That's like quite technical, but that's the standard that we build buildings to in my office, which is the passive house standard. And it's just, it's not impossible to do. It makes a huge difference in our sort of internal energy loss modeling. Like nothing worse for your heating bill than cold air coming straight in. So, so I think that's what I propose. All electric building systems, including heat pump, heating, and cooling, and electric kitchen appliances. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. sufficient solar energy generation to offset 100% of building energy use. I think if all of this stuff gets done, that's possible. For a building like this. Layout and building structure designed with future flexibility in mind. That's important for. We just don't want, you don't want things to end up in a landfill. So the more you can design, like, for example, the structural system of a building to be,
Right, and be,
could be reconfigured at a
Added
time, added to, or
yeah,
there's just, that's a more detailed thing, but it's a good goal because the longer a building lasts, obviously, the better.
and it was one of the goals of the Butler Futures Committee too, to make sure whatever building we have would be flexible for the future.
And then the last one, just sort of another kind of obvious one, non-toxic, low carbon, easily recyclable building materials. That's just another piece where you're trying to avoid things ending up in the landfill. So the pieces of the building that you do have to replace more often, siding, whatever, some flooring, carpet, whatever, it's just to make it easier to recycle and just be sort of deliberate about how those things are chosen. Anyway, so that's my little proposal about building standards. And again, I think it doesn't make sense to really compromise on those yet. Until we have clear direction. And I think the other thing is it makes less sense to compromise on these things in building like a public library that you intend to last for a really long time. And you have a lot of runway to get your return on your investment in terms of operating costs. So there's.
Yeah, did
So I
you
think-
follow what happened with Rockport? I mean, they run into problems on the first winter, so, you know, it's something you may want to look into, what you did wrong, you know,
Their roof flooded.
yeah.
Rockport was
Yeah.
flooded.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
actually it happened last winter too, after the storm in December.
Yeah, well, that happened over in Thomaston
And
too, yeah.
Laura Lilly
But
also.
Yeah, so we could find out about that and see what they did wrong. That's for sure.
Because it was supposed to be built, saying, you know, using all kinds of wood. You know, so they forgot something, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we can find out,
Yeah.
we should find
Yeah,
out
yeah,
because we
yeah.
don't definitely want to avoid that if we can. Anyway, so then the budget, I think, there's sort of no way to sugarcoat it.
Couldn't find the budget.
I couldn't find the budget.
I don't have one yet.
Didn't ask you to find the budget.
I know,
So
I'm in
construction
shock.
is expensive. I think $450 a square foot is reasonable. You can build a building like that for this. You
I don't
can't
think-
build it for much less.
The price doesn't shock me.
it doesn't shock me either, but it's interesting to note that when at the end of, I'm sorry to.
No, go
interrupt,
ahead. That's
sorry.
it. That's totally.
At the end of the Futures Committee, we envisioned a building of 4,500 square feet, so that's obviously changed. And the building costs were like 350 a square foot that many years ago. So that's where we got, you know, the price that we got, the estimate back then, a very rough estimate.
And life
So-
has changed.
Life has changed. We've added.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, we have to ask ourselves the question is this the right size building? Is this what we really, you know, I mean, I think there's questions to be asked here. About, you know, what we envisioned back then was a smaller meeting room because we weren't planning for as many people at town meeting.
But
And-
that's the key, as soon as you say town meeting, I mean, I think the 6,000 square feet, you know, is a ballpark.
I think it's, yeah, I agree. I'm just saying where we were at that many years ago is different than this particular configuration. And we had interviewed, you know, we interviewed different people during that time, what they needed. We interviewed Penny, we interviewed fire department, you know, so there were a town administrator and, you know, all of that kind of stuff went into that decision making. Wasn't as clearly as detailed and as intensive as what we've done here.
But you were not terribly off the mark there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, so I think just a little bit of background on the 450 a square foot. That's really what we're seeing projects like this coming on. We just finished a project down at Wolf's Neck Center for Agriculture and the Environment in Freeport, which is actually one I would recommend people visit.
Do you have the address?
What is it again?
184 Burnett Road in Freeport. It just opened in May.
You said Wolf's Neck, but you said Freeport?
Wolf's Neck is in Freeport.
Oh, there's a Wolf's Nest also somewhere else, so that's all right.
There is so it's the Wolf's Neck Farm in Freeport. It's a nonprofit organization.
Oh, I
that
read
they-
about that.
Yeah,
I read, and they had the new building.
yeah, that was my project.
Oh, okay.
Um,
That was your project?
Well,
Who
I
does?
was sort of I managed that project for the architecture office, but it's bigger. It's about an 8,000 square foot building. Has a big meeting space, has a kitchen, classroom space. It's not a library, but it has these specifications for energy efficiency, net positive building, very large solar array. Right about $450 a square foot, plus or minus. It has a big landscape architecture component.
Mhm.
So you take the $1 million of landscape work away. Then it's right around $450 a square foot, more like 500 with the landscape, but. If people are going down that way, I recommend that you visit it just because it's interesting to see what. A building built to this
And it's
level
a
of
nonprofit,
nonprofit, yeah.
so they.
And what
how
was
do
the
they raise
budget?
Money, just private donors or?
Yeah. And no, so here they have private donors and they have confidence in their ability to continue to raise money. So they financed the building. They financed about 60% of the building cost. That was about a $4.5 million project. So they financed 2.5 million plus or minus 2.8. And most of it they had from donations. But that's a pretty well-established nonprofit. They got, really big grant recently from the federal government to study
Yes.
agricultural sustainability. The Freeport donor community is a different donor community than the South Thomaston donor community. And they had been fundraising for 10 years. So I think that's,
But also when you take the classes, I don't know if I read it or if I heard it on the radio when we were traveling, but if they have classes, then that money goes back either to pay for the classes. But
Yeah.
there are products too that.
yeah, they have farm products for sale and it's also, it's a revenue generating building. They're renting it out for events and conferences and so there's a whole business model there. But that's another interesting one that people could visit and sort of get a sense for what buildings like this look like. It has a lot of glass, very glassy. So I think that's a pretty good comparison for a facility like this. Again, you got not a library, so there's some specifics. The kitchen is a commercial kitchen, so that was more expensive. But that's why I chose that $450 a square foot, because that project just finished in May. And so that was the end of the document. I think
We talk about sort of next steps. What do we imagine compiling for a public presentation? What do you
Sure.
need from us? What kind of feedback?
yeah, I mean, from this group, just any feedback.
Yeah, so you would end up working those from the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Today. Yeah,
And then we would create packets,
well, first thing would be, I think, to have this as the PDF posted on the website.
Mhm.
So that everybody can access it
Mhm.
and,
And have some hard copies at the town meeting to
Yeah,
yeah.
we would like, I think that's a good idea.
take away.
Go ahead, Moira.
Have we put a bulletin information at the center, Guilford Butler Center yet?
No,
Okay, this,
should go up on.
yes.
Yeah,
Because,
Mhm.
so the people that are using the current building see what the future is. And so you have that, and then town meeting, as Jan just said, also on, as Catherine said, on the internet. And packages that people could, hard copies they could pick up here at the town office, because a lot of people can't print. So they
Right.
can't see it.
so PDF on website,
Mhm.
a link maybe to, I don't know, to people to get on, would they
Yeah,
do
you
that?
could
And
send
then
out by the listserv
hard
as well.
copies for town meeting and at town offices and at the Guilford Butler Center.
And I think in terms of an actual public presentation, I think is another piece that we talked about. This pretty easy to turn into a slide deck,
Yeah.
so I could,
PowerPoint presentation.
I could easily do
And
that.
that would be after town
I think
meeting.
after, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, this is not gonna happen.
Well,
That's exciting.
yeah.
The ambassador meetings that we're talking about too. and
Those
some
ambassador groups.
right,
Presentation.
right.
I'll just basically make a version where it's.
Okay,
And then people can flip through it at the, and just more bullet points and less. Go ahead, Penny.
Yeah, my math was correct, I'm coming up with 6,300 square feet, 2.835 million.
Yep.
Is that right?
No, so you probably have an additional 20% on top of that for. Design fees, landscaping, furnishings and AV. So it's probably more like 3.2. Penny, give or take, 3.25.
Can we go over the 20% is design fees?
So design fees you'd expect to be right around 8%.
Yeah, I just.
So I
wanted
could,
to know
yeah, so
the
design fees, landscaping,
landscape.
furniture and technology. So that's $450 a square foot in construction costs. That's a little, the 20% is a little conservative. It might be less. Particularly work with the nation. Yeah. So everything basically, the analogy we use, you pick up the building and shake it. Everything that actually falls out isn't included. But stuff that's bolted down, like all the mechanical equipment, and everything is included in the $450 per square foot. So a fully functional building basically without TVs and furniture. But that'll be, Penny, to your point, that'll be explained in the document as well. So there'll be one number just for the construction and one number that includes all that other stuff that I mentioned. Because it is important to differentiate.
How big can you produce those? Like if I wanted to have them printed poster size?
Any size.
Yeah.
Or the floor plans,
Yeah.
yeah, for the meetings, that's a great
Right
idea.
now, that's basic, it's, yeah, I can any size.
Because I think these are the main,
Yeah, they are. I think some of the pictures too, I would say, some of
Yeah.
the pictures are less easy to make big because they're,
Yeah.
They're
you can have
grainy.
a-
Yeah.
When you blow them up.
that and,
yeah,
But here, if you have the big poster, it's easy to see the layout and then, explaining what rooms function would be and, the red line. The flow of people and.
Yeah.
But I do believe for most people, including me, having the, orientation with respect to the current,
Yeah,
road.
be
and
great,
so
yeah,
forth
if we
would
could
be
get that, that
more-
would be really.
yeah, I can add something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Okay,
It'll be a
That's
diagrammatic, but. Yeah, I think.
so for all of these meetings or all of these presentations, the question is going to be, how are we going to fundraise? How are we going to get this money? What are we going to do? And I think Gabe and I talked earlier today about at least having an outline of a fundraising
Plan.
capital campaign would be important to have that down. Now, I have talked with several capital campaign consultants. And I have some notes from a meeting I had in March with one of them. For things, they charge a percentage, but this woman, Lila Murphy, who is the campaign consultant for AIO, said, rather than us paying her, a certain amount of money right off the bat, there's many things we can do to be ready, and so I have these notes, which I, think would be great for all of you to read.
Can I interject one thing?
Yes.
Sorry, back in the design. Do we want to have another meeting before town meeting to approve this, or is sending it out by email fine?
You can, yeah, I mean, I can
Email works. for
Email's
me.
fine.
Email's fine, okay, great,
set enough stuff, yeah.
Because
Perfect.
it's still a moving target. It's
yeah,
not.
so I'll make the next round of updates. And
And we are
on
gonna
the
have.
floor
one more.
plans. I don't think we need.
No,
one.
I don't
I
think
think so.
so.
I think I'll make one more round of updates, send it out. If anybody has like major reservations, then we'll make more updates, but otherwise we'll go with it. Sound good?
Yep.
Perfect.
Did a really good job.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
just
you.
a little concerned about the maker spaces awkward and not. Quite.
Okay, yeah, well, there'll be an update to that.
So,
I'll make an update to that, yeah. And I think the other thing is, you know, if it's, we'll get closer, it's not gonna be perfect the next round, and then, whatever the next- yeah.
Jumping out every.
yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate hearing that. I think, well, I'll try and incorporate that into the next version.
Because again, I haven't seen many members of this committee observing what's happening down there with the space we have now, so. I
Yeah,
feel strongly that I've got a year of experience under my belt now of running a community center and what it's worked into.
yeah, and we understand and we appreciate your feedback very much. So I will also send you this document right after the meeting, so you can give any additional feedback.
So these were Lila's recommendations to us as a committee, and where we can begin to kind of make an outline. I have started to write the case statement, which is, I don't know if everybody knows what a case statement is, but it's a document that you would give to donors. You would use it internally and externally. They might be slightly different. Internally would be to guide the process, you know, so what's our mission? What's our vision statement? There's a whole outline, and I have
But
many-
before we get into that, like, the big overview of the fundraising process is, you know, there is the silent campaign.
well, yes, so, but even before we get to the silent campaign, there's a lot of details that.
What is a silent campaign? We
Oh,
know, and then what
So
are
to
the various
identify
things
that for people, yes, so there's usually a silent campaign, which is not so silent because you're asking big, you know, big time donors or people in town who have a certain amount of money that would be willing to.
Direct solicitation.
Hmm?
It's direct solicitation.
Yes.
With people.
Yes,
And-
it's not a fundraising event. This is, you know, it might be pledges, it might, you know, there's various ways that you can do that. And then there would be an active campaign, but before you even get there, you should be working on grants. And the rule is you want to be raising a half of the budget through your donations and your grants before you start any project. I mean, you really have to have that much raised before you start any kind of a building project. So that's going to take a bit of time, a bit of work on our part. And then there would be an ongoing set of fundraising activity after the silent phase. And additional work on, you know, smaller pledges or recurring donations, in-kind donations, all of that work has to happen next. To keep bringing the money in, which would probably take, I don't know, 2 years to raise enough money to get going. So I've talked to people about grant research. I have a couple people who do not want to be on the committee or on the board, but they are willing to be in an advisory couple to work into fundraising through grants, and they have good connections. So
Yeah, we're very much.
okay, we can hook you there with them.
Thank you.
And then, you know, getting some information about databases, which from what I have understood from various nonprofits, the Little Green Light is a database that works well for nonprofits of not a very big, you know, organization. So that, you know, figuring out who's gonna do that. So there's a lot of things, you know, like organization stuff before we actually get off the ground with a major campaign. Do we want to have some kind of a letterhead, you know, I mean, all the kinds of technical stuff that has to happen with recording and following up on donations. So I think essentially those were my notes from Layla, and I think it's a good set of tasks. But I think then you're right, Catherine, to have the outline of what a capital campaign really is, the
and
silent
let's
phase.
see reasonable time, days is like how much time, people cannot expect to have a building, ready to go within 1 year. It's gonna take multiple years to raise the money. So, so that people have realistic expectations of the whole thing.
Buy a lot of
Maybe you-
tickets from now on.
Yeah, about lottery tickets, I'm telling
Yeah.
you. Betting,
Okay,
also,
so
there is
maybe
a horse race.
A couple of us can talk, about this. So I'm prepared to put together an outline if you'd like me to do that, and what that looks like,
Yeah.
something that we could give to the public,
Yes,
put on the website if we need to, all that kind of stuff. And I'm also in the process of writing the case statement, which has quite a few pieces in it. So I would try to get that done for our next meeting.
That sounds great.
Okay.
And I think one thing just. I guess I guess to me, there's just like a part of the basis is sort of just like a feasibility question. Is there like. What tools do these people have to assess like how big is the database? Like what are the realistic grant opportunities? Like
yeah,
how much money, like, is there a way to project? How much?
Well,
money
you
is
can
raisable?
hire somebody to do a feasibility
Yeah.
study. And I can only tell you that that costs a fair amount of money.
Yeah, I'm
That's like
sure, yeah, I bet it does.
$6,000 or something to have somebody do a feasibility study. We can do our own research on terms of, who.
Yeah.
Just who's in town. We can do
Like-
that.
I guess it'd be helpful just to know like what the feasibility study people would be looking for. From my perspective, I think like,
Like personal monies are great and granted, they always, that
They're
they
Yeah.
get tapped heavily and a lot.
Yeah.
For a lot,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Okay.
so
On the
maybe
other
that
hand,
is
just to tell you that Tennant's Harbor did a feasibility study and failed, and they still went on to build a library. So you don't want to start on something unless you have some idea that it's feasible. So we have to do some research and,
Yeah.
and Layla has some good, information on how we can do that ourselves.
Yes.
But if we, and we have to do it. I mean, I think it's really important to do that. So
I
we,
guess I think that should be part of the schedule. That's the outline that's produced. It's just like,
yeah,
there's some
feasibility.
baseline like feasibility questions. I think that. Whether or not that feasibility information is ironclad, like, whether you believe it or not, basically, like. It should tell us something.
Yeah,
About what's reasonable and what's possible.
Yeah.
And that's,
and I think
um,
that we have to have a very honest look at that if we're, gonna start on this project, so.
Would that be something that you work with the town and, would they let you look at the tax books? and things?
Well, people that do the fees,
That's-
Yeah.
the people that do the feasibility studies go through tax records, yeah,
Okay.
that's one thing that they
Okay, I
do.
was just thinking about privacy,
And-
but you were right.
it's a public record.
So,
I use one vision.
so that's something that I can prepare.
Yeah, so they don't visit that. Apologize, but I'm way too busy, unfortunately.
Okay,
Yes,
building include fire question.
it probably would. Well, it depends.
It has to,
It's-
isn't it?
Not necessarily. The building that down at Wolf's Neck, 8,000 square feet doesn't have it. And that's because it has a lot of exits. And it's just under the number of occupants that require a fire suppression system. So that's 300 people in Maine.
That apply to life?
It applies to buildings that are, well, the way it works is a building like this is more likely to be classified as an assembly building because of the town meeting space if it's all in one. And that's generally what they would consider the more restrictive category. So there's it's a higher risk category in assembly space than a library. So it would be governed by that rule, and in that case, if it's under 300 people and certain other things are met in terms of distance to exit, et cetera, then it's possible to avoid it. I'm not confident yet saying like, nope, don't need it, but it's gonna be, once you have a real design and you started to go back and forth. That'd be a conversation with the state fire marshal's office. But yes, Penny, the fire suppression system should fit in that budget, roughly. Within a couple dollars a square foot. Right.
Question, since this building's all electric and you don't want any fossil fuels. And it's eventually be an emergency shelter, are you looking at having a Tesla battery for backup instead of a generator? Or
Possibly, but I would say that's like one of those things where you'd have to see where the technology
where the
is.
technology has changed?
That Wolf's Neck building does have a bed generator backup
Mhm.
because they had like, for example, they had a big donor that donated the solar panel system, but there just wasn't
But
financially feasible capacity in a battery system for that type of load
sure,
to back up. And I think that's just gonna be, that should be the goal. It should be the goal.
so you might want to look at the goal
Yeah,
when you said no fossil fuels, because the goal is no fossil fuels, but if we have to have a generator or something
Yeah.
else.
yeah, I would say like no fossil fuels in the day-to-day operation. of the plant.
Yeah.
Because there is definitely a possibility that a backup generator will be required. If battery tech, yeah, batteries would be better, but they might just, right now, backing up a public building like that on batteries is not realistic.
Oh, no, because a regular house needs at least 2 batteries. Causeway has 3 for running their whole place for the B&B.
Yeah,
And we went with 1 battery, so we have certain things that we don't run at our house.
yeah, I think there's, for an emergency shelter, you still probably have to prioritize the loads.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have everything, but,
That's expensive. I looked at batteries for my place. I was just going to $20,000 for 2 batteries.
That's why I went with 1.
yeah. But yeah, so that is a good point. We'll adjust the language to leave that possibility open. But I think it's also worth mentioning, you should actually mention that it's gonna be an emergency shelter. That's not, it's not listed.
And that's not listed. That
Yeah.
would be in your bullet point section.
Is there a decision made that it is gonna be an emergency shelter?
Yes,
Not necessarily.
I mean, I guess the decision that was made was that the committee believes that it would be reasonable to have it be an emergency shelter.
As the newest structure, hopefully built, well, it makes sense.
It will lose heat very slowly in a power outage.
But that what you just said, that would be the perfect comment at the town meeting,
Yeah, I think it depends whether, I don't actually know what governs where an emergency shelter is required, but I think we wanted it to have that function is because it seemed suited.
Yeah, a capability at least.
Yeah.
right.
and that's why we're putting showers in bathrooms, because to have an emergency shelter and to qualify for certain grants through the Knox community, emergency, you have to have showers as well in an emergency shelter, and that's why, this is the emergency shelter, because they have a shower in that bathroom.
Mhm.
And that's the problem with the one in Spruce Head at the church. There's no shower at that emergency shelter.
This is not an emergency.
It is,
Temporary one.
it's a temporary one, right?
But not because of the shower.
No, but it's because originally it has a generator and it has a shower, because that's what was at our meeting, that's what they told us. When Betty and the lady from Knox, Candace Richards told us. And because they wanted to use the center, but at that time, the center didn't have a generator. You've got your generator now. Is it hooked up now?
Yes.
Okay, but, and so that's why it was moving that way. Because but with Candace Richards, she went through everything that they need to have for the shelter, and that's the only thing that the church doesn't have. And the minister said people could come over and use his shower at his house, which was very kind of him. But the church over there bought the generator for the
Yeah.
emergency center. They bought it out of their own money and donated it, which was very kind.
Yeah.
That's
very
great,
good.
yeah. So I think that's just,
All
that
right.
was an overlay, Jan, that we discussed before.
I suggest in the effort to finish, that we table the rest of these until our next meeting. The nominating committee will be meeting the week after next, so we'll have more information about the board of directors. And we're getting ready for town meeting and doing all these things that we need to get done ahead of that. So the first Thursday in July is July 6th. I'm also available June 29th if you don't want to complicate that week of July 4th. I don't know.
The 6th is probably fine. for
I'd
me.
rather that we stay with the first Thursday, so.
Yeah, I think it's
consistent.
best if we stay with the
Yeah.
first Thursday. I just know that
Let's
we're getting
plan on
into
the
summer,
6th then.
summertime stuff. So July 6th. And okay, I think that's it for
And
tonight.
what date for your nominating committee?
We're still trying to schedule it. It's right now, it's the Monday after next, so it's, is that the 12th? June 12th, I believe. But we haven't gotten approval from everybody.
Well, they have, the fire
We always meet earlier. than
What do you
5
have,
o'clock.
Penny? I'm sorry.
is here Monday night.
Right, we normally meet at 4:30. and
We,
done by
yeah, we meet in the
5:30.
afternoon at 4:30. Is that,
They come in at, I think, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
After us,
our meetings?
but we haven't heard from Sue Snow, because we were hoping to meet next week.
So,
I think it needs to wait until after the select board meeting.
can you say that, Luke?
I think that the nominating committee needs to wait until after the next select board meeting.
Yes, which is this coming week, and that's true. So. Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second,
Hey, all in favor? And here we go.
thank you for the feedback.
Thank you very much for that work.
Please,
That was
Please send me emails and stuff
that
with
was-
any other thoughts.
Are we gonna continue meeting throughout the summer? Like last summer, we took August off.
That's going to be good. So it's my July 19th meeting in September.
I'm just curious.
Can give you my phone number if you have a question, I'm not sure I understand so correct.
Yeah, I'll give her your number. She is.
I know, but she had.
Yeah. I feel like she.